This video is going to be my reaction to the Lions' 24-14 win over the Packers Sunday afternoon in Week 9 up in Green Bay. Detroit showed the ability to win different types of football games once again today. In this case, making zero mistakes on offense, going to Green Bay, walking away with a 10-point win that really required very little investment in play calling in the second half by the offense. I'm talking about once the Lions went up 24-3, their next three possessions, the play calling was quite vanilla, ultra conservative, if you ask me. Nonetheless, Jared Goff continued his 80% completion percentage streak. In fact, he was right on cue or right on target with 81.8% completion percentage today, 18 of 22. The Lions scored on a pair of fourth down touchdowns to take complete control of the NFC North, at least early in the season. They now boast road wins over the Vikings and the Packers, two teams in their division with winning records, in fact, impressive records against the rest of the NFL. They head to Houston next week to take on a 6-3 Texans team that's getting a long rest after their Thursday night football loss to the Jets. This is the second week in a row where Ben Johnson and Detroit's offense didn't need to push the pedal to the floor. They really didn't need to get out of, I guess I would almost say they didn't really need to even get into fourth gear. They only put up 261 yards of offense today after totaling just 225 in last week's win over the Titans, but they didn't need to last week. They had a short field oftentimes. In this case, they got an interception return for a touchdown by Kirby Joseph, a brilliant play late in the second quarter that really swung the momentum. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs split carries towards their almost 140 yards rushing, 138. In fact, Gibbs punctuated a 4th-and-1 touchdown early in the third quarter, first possession of the third quarter, make it 24-3. For all intents and purposes, the game was over at that point, so long as Detroit didn't make defensive miscues or turn the football over. Kirby Joseph's play late in the second quarter, it was almost handed up on a platter by Jordan Love to an extent, but on a day that's wet, Jordan Love actually had difficulty holding on to that football before the throw as he's trying to scramble out to the right. Got to give Kirby Joseph credit for snagging the ball. He did catch it twice. I guess maybe there's a slight bobble there. Take it back to the house for a 27-yard interception return. I don't know about you, but I stood up out of my seat because I was so excited. I was like, man, there's a great opportunity here already, up 10-3, and then getting the interception, taking it to the house to make it 17-3. Really just put the icing on the cake, or started to get it ready. In this case, Gibbs' touchdown on the fourth down, I guess, would officially be the icing on the cake before they went into ultra-conservative mode on offense. Once the Packers were able to get that late touchdown on a short run by Wilson, to close to 24-14, David Montgomery kind of went into overtime mode again. He converted a 3rd-and-1 run. I think it was a 4 or 5 yard gain. Then he surged ahead for a 12-yard gain where he broke 2 tackles. He added a 14-yard catch on a play-action pass with just over 2 minutes left that shocked me. Really caught me off guard. I think it was 2:03 left as they snapped the ball. And I guess the thought process is we're just outside the 2-minute warning, and the Packers have called timeout at 2:03. So at the snap, it doesn't matter if it's an incomplete pass. So brilliant, if you ask me, adjustment or play call by Ben Johnson in that case. Finds Montgomery over the middle. I think it ends up being a 14-yard gain. Really finishes it off. Goff can go into victory formation, take a couple of knees after that, push Detroit's record to 7-1. On the other side of the ball, Green Bay was able to generate 400 yards of offense. Love's second quarter interception, huge blow for them. Timely stops by the Lions defense as well. There was a big one in the fourth quarter that I think kind of needs to be talked about. The Lions are up 24-6. Packers are facing a 4th-and-1 inside the 10, I think just inside the 10, right around the 9-yard line. And Jacobs gets the ball on a run concept to the same side as the tight end. And multiple guys are at the point of attack. They credited Nowosky and Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell had 13 tackles on the day, by the way. I think the Lions at that point, after that stop, really had things under control, 24-6 in the third quarter. Even though at that point, like I said, the offense was vanilla for 3 possessions in a row. Here's what I mean. I know I've mentioned it multiple times. It really did kind of catch my eye. I feel like there was clearly some conversation by the coaching staff either at halftime or out on the field after Gibbs' touchdown made it 24-3. Here's the 3 possessions thereafter. The Lions offense goes 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. And then after the defense's fourth down stop of Josh Jacobs, again, the tackle by Nowaski, Jack Campbell, and I think a couple other guys are there too. The Lions did get one first down before calling a really weird reverse, double reverse, in fact, to Khalif Raymond. I'm a big fan of that play, especially with how often Ben Johnson has used the reverse anyway. In that moment, I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure that it's something that I would advocate for, or I would think that they're going to run multiple times again. Those were three weird possessions for me. A lot of positives today. You got 2 wins over on the road against the Vikings and now the Packers. You're 7-1, winning games without really any contribution by the outside linebacker DN position, with Josh Paschal being out. Other guys got opportunities, and I just don't think they really took advantage of them. 0 sacks generated today. Only 2 quarterback hits, as you see from the stats flowing through there. It's a great win. On the road against the Packers, a longtime rival. In the rain, I get it. However, I think that position has to be addressed soon. And if it's not, I do think there's a cap on what this defense is capable of. Nonetheless, they did prove able to win in whatever manner the circumstances call for. I almost liken the Lions to like a boxer who can shift strategies or tacks in the middle of the 5th round or in the middle of a fight that maybe is more even than you suspected it. Again, I think the coaching staff made a mistake made a decision to play so conservatively. Was it a mistake? Well, no, they won the football game. And they didn't have to show a whole lot to the Packers, a team that they're going to play again later this year. It was just difficult to watch because the Lions are capable of more. They're just capable of more, and I thought there was an opportunity to really get on top of the Packers and finish them off. And those 2 or 3 possessions, in fact, left meat out on the field, left meat on the bone, if you will. I think there's 2 guys that have to be mentioned here defensively, one of which I know played really well, Jack Campbell, 13 tackles, and the other one is Carlton Davis III. And I can't prove that one necessarily. I mean, he did have 7 tackles, 2 passes defensed. I thought he was in tight man coverage often. And then when they were in zone, he was able to break downhill and get involved in tackles consistently. I thought he made life really difficult for the receivers in man. Thought this may have been his most complete performance. The Packers, in my opinion, do boast a wide receiver group that has a lot of depth. Do they have anyone as good as a DK Metcalf or some of the other receivers that CD3 has gone up against this year? Well, no, not from an individual standpoint. But from a collective, it's a good receiver core when you add in the tight ends. I thought CD3 played really well. Jack Campbell, like I said, 13 tackles, I think 6 solos. It was really unfortunate that Branch was ejected, in my opinion. I think to a certain degree, we are watching the death of football happen in real time. And that may sound like hyperbole or an exaggeration, and that's fine if you believe that. But when someone outside of the field of play can impact the game, right or wrong, I disagree with it. And now, of course, there was some bias there. I'm rooting for the Lions to win, and I'm a huge Brian Branch fan. I want him to be on the field because the balance of power rests on the side of the Lions' defense in many cases, with him and Branch back there. They now have 11 interceptions on the season. I don't think ejections should occur on a buddy pass anyway. If you don't want your receiver to get jacked up, don't throw it in a location that sets him up to do so. To me, the logic, or actually the lack of logic, is astounding. And I think it goes against the fabric of the game for that to be a process anyway that can be handled by off-the-field personnel. We don't even know the name of the person who makes that decision. At least with the referees, as arbitrary and uncompromised as they are, and incompetent at times, at least you know the name of the ref. At least you can see a face to it on the television. And at least post memes of it or go research something about that person, put something on social media if that is how you like to react to it. In this case, you have no idea who it was. It's just New York. I think it removes, one decision at a time like that, the credibility of the NFL in general, and pushes it a little bit closer to, I don't know what to compare it to. I almost want to say pro wrestling, but I don't want to go that far. It feels contrived. Almost like The Wizard of Oz, where there's someone behind the curtain that you know is operating a facade. And this reminds me of that. I don't think Brian Branch should be ejected for it. I don't think any player should be ejected for it, first of all. However, I certainly would not support that happening from outside the field of play. That rule structure, in my opinion, provides the NFL the ability to sway or shift the balance of power or the balance of talent between the offense and defense, between two teams, and I reject it wholeheartedly. I understand you may disagree and have concerns about player safety. Got to give credit to Aaron Glenn and his guys for surviving that loss with Branch being ejected. Also, CD3 goes out with an injury at some point. Whether he was faking it or not to give the defense a rest, I'm not sure. Really no pass rush at all generated today. There's no choice but to address it somehow, if you ask me. Look, the Lions did get 3 sacks against the Titans last week. They now have 20 on the year through 8 games. I'm not sure where that ranks. I'm quite sure that ranks outside the top 15 or 18, but I could be wrong there. But of those 20 sacks, 7.5 of them are from Hutchinson, and a half a sack is from Marcus Davenport, who was playing well before he got put out for the year. This is a Super Bowl caliber team. I think Brad Holmes and the front office are, in fact, exploring options, exhausting them, to be real. I think they're exhausting them. I think they're calling everyone and anyone. I do wonder about teams not wanting to trade with the Lions. If you're a 2-6 Jags team and they call about Trayvon Walker, or if you're a Raiders team that's going nowhere and they call about Max Crosby, or the Browns, Zadarius Smith. By the way, you would love Zadarius Smith. He is hostile and more agile than you may think. Incredibly strong as a run defender at the point of attack. If they go get Zadarius Smith, you'll be happy. I hope that they do, because I think that this Detroit defense is capped at times if you don't have better pass rush guys out there. And even Zadarius Smith is a guy who isn't a, quote, premier pass rusher, the 14, 15 sacks per game type guy. Anyway, they were still able to limit Green Bay today. Love did finish with 273 yards passing, but very inefficient. 23 of 39. They had some drops. Don't get me wrong, that played a role. I thought Aleem McNeil's big hit on Love had an impact. He's trying to get the ball to Christian Watson deep down the left side against Robertson. I believe it was against Robertson, who played well, in my opinion, except for the unsportsmanlike call in the end zone. I don't really know what happened there. But that was a big hit, because if Love is able to throw that football from a clean platform, on balance and on time, it's quite possible that Watson gets a touchdown there. He's clear by 4 or 5 yards. I definitely want to do a film study this week on CD3 and also cover the Lions' first possession and possibly their fourth, which I'd like to talk about now. Their fourth possession opens the third quarter, and I think just illustrates what they're capable of and how diverse the offense is, how maddening it must be to try to stop it for a defense. I'm talking about when Ben Johnson and those guys are trying to score. It's pretty obvious they were not trying to score after taking this 24-3 lead. Really cool play to start off this drive. First and 10, negative 25-yard line. I didn't get the personnel in formation. I'm not sure why. It ends up being a screen to St. Brown, real quick to the right-hand side, 14 yards from motion. So he motioned left to right. Gibbs, a short run immediately thereafter, and then a counter play to Gibbs that they ran 3 times, unsuccessful twice, but in this case got 8 yards. Gibbs also went to the right side on the 3rd and 1, but there was a penalty. He converted it, by the way. There was a penalty. I believe it was on Brock Wright and someone else who were supposedly in motion at the time, so created a 3rd and 6. And then this one I thought was a pretty obvious hold. The announcers, Tom Brady, didn't think so necessarily. They thought it was kind of soft at first. 3rd and 6 from the negative 44. Pass to Raymond over the middle against man. That was a pretty obvious hold, like kind of near the left hash. In any case, they get the first down there. Laporta, very next play. I think it's Jumbo 13 personnel. I have it listed as 13 personnel. I think it's Jumbo 13. 1st and 10 from the negative 49. Wing slot. Laporta complete underneath zone for 9 yards. Gibbs with a huge gain on the very next play, a 2nd and 1. He got 18 yards. One thing I wanted to mention about that, I thought I saw his ankle turn or hyperextend in a very weird manner. Perhaps I can't use the word hyperextend for an ankle, but it looked like it was at an unusual angle, and he lay there for a moment, and I don't know about you. I was worried in that instant, in that moment, I should say. It's an 18-yard gain, and then clearly he was okay. They gave him the ball in the very next snap. 4-yard gain, then 5-yard gain, gets him down to 3rd and 1. The wheel to Gibbs, I think, is overthrown. I don't think that one is put in a position where Gibbs can make a play, but it's also possible that the Goff is trying to make it to where either Gibbs is going to catch the football or it's going to go incomplete because they know they're going to go for it on fourth down. It's man coverage, though, and in my experience, like the wheel against a linebacker with a running back into the boundary, especially when there was a pick there, like you saw by the ex-receiver. I think it's Tim Patrick, but I could be wrong. I don't feel the need to overthrow that one. I want to put that in a catchable place. But look, it's Jared Goff. He's completing 81.8 or 82% of his passes in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Insanity personified from an NFL quarterback, especially in this weather. And then the 4th and 1 touchdown follows with Gibbs. After an incomplete pass to Gibbs, look at how many touches in a row he got. It's 5 or touches / targets. And this is wide open. There's a bubble attached to it with St. Brown, meaning St. Brown is running a bubble to one side. Gibbs on the give. Bunch set to one side, tight end, and Gibbs on the same side to the other. And it's wide open. He just walks into the end zone untouched. Very similar to that third down touchdown run, 3rd and 7 from the 8-yard line against the Vikings, where Gibbs burst through downhill and pretty much helped the Lions take control. This is a unique offense from the standpoint of it's not just their willingness to run the ball on 4th down. They almost seem like they enjoy it. And I think there's something real fun about that, about trying to evaluate that. The big story of this one for me is the ejection of Branch and whether he'll get fined or suspended. He gave the middle fingers to the crowd. Look, you don't want players to react that way. However, having said that, when you feel like you've been unjustly targeted, when you feel like you've been unjustly put in the crosshairs of some arbitrary person that's not even at the game you can't talk to, I understand people reacting like that. In fact, I have been around situations where players initially reacted with physicality towards a ref, a push, a shove, or towards other players because they're so frustrated when they feel like they're being targeted, unjustly so. And I think that's the case. I think that receivers and quarterbacks at this point are protected from their bad decisions, and it's tearing at the fabric of the game. I've covered it really ad nauseum at this point. I do want to talk about Goff. In the first half, he's 11 of 12. There is an incomplete to, I think it's Montgomery, his first incomplete pass. That one was on the 3rd down, and he thinks that Montgomery's going to go out into the flats, throws it quick. Montgomery instead zigs over the middle. So even his incomplete passes today weren't necessarily off-target throws. He's just playing at a different level. Very efficient. Low passing yards output the last 2 weeks, but they haven't needed it. I don't think this team cares about stats. I don't think Jared Goff cares about stats. And there's something to be said for that, in my opinion, when you as a team, as a competitor, as a guy who's getting paid millions of dollars, really don't care about your stats trying to justify the contract that this team signed you to. I think that trickles down to the rest of the team, or maybe it trickles down from the coaching staff. Absolute buy-in from this team shouldn't surprise anyone. Jared Goff being the first and foremost because he doesn't care, in my opinion, about his stats. Gibbs and Montgomery, the way they handle the handing off or trading of the workload, again, sets the example, sets the precedent that that's just how things operate in Detroit. This is going to set up a showdown with the Texans, who have had some very interesting results lately, let's put it that way. 2 real offensive stinkers. Well, actually 3 in terms of the passing game. They are missing Stephon Diggs, out for the year. Nico Collins has been out for a while as well. So those losses are going to impact this matchup. Stopping or slowing the running game down, Joe Mixon primarily, will be paramount. You have to talk about this. The Packers were able to generate some yardage on the ground. 23 carries for 138 yards. That is now 3 weeks in a row where opposing teams' offenses have been able to get to 130 plus. So there's some concern there. And that coincides with losing Hutchinson for the year. It goes back to my point. I understand people have drastically different opinions. I think you've got to score some type of upgrade at the defensive end outside linebacker position. Otherwise, this team is capped and, in my opinion, is going to have severe difficulty against some quarterbacks who aren't going to make mistakes like Jordan Love did tonight and or drops that occurred, one of them in the end zone, another one over the middle. 2 missed throws, I thought, by Jordan Love over the middle, intermediate type throws. In my opinion, the Lions have one of the best rosters in the NFL. If Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson are healthy, along with Derek Barnes, complete football team. Deep, physical, nasty, focused, disciplined. However, Davenport out for the year, apparently. Hutchinson certainly out for the year. I think something's got to get done there, and I think it's got to get done soon. You may disagree, and that's no problem. What we can agree on is that Detroit being off to a 7-1 start is exactly where you wanted to be, despite the Week 2 loss at home to the Bucs, a team that you'd like to get a second shot at later on in the year if they were able to get to Detroit, who I think at this point is headed for home field advantage in the playoffs. I appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the thoughts that I've put out there. I wasn't too heavy on the stats here for golf. I'll do a standalone video about some of the offensive efficiency later on this week. It's a fun offense to watch, which is why I complained so much about those 3 possessions in a row that I'm not saying they should have been thrown deep, that it almost felt like a musician who decides to just kind of sit out a song that you showed up to watch. That's how much I enjoy watching Detroit's offense. So my disappointment is born out of that perspective. Admiration and enjoyment for watching the plays that they run and the manner and timing in which Ben Johnson chooses to deploy them. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy my reaction video to their 24-14 win over the Packers, I know it's got to feel good, especially if you're longtime Lions fans, to get another win over a division rival, a longtime rival, in this case Green Bay, to really snatch control of the NFC North with Minnesota losing for the second week in a row. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you have ever considered joining my Patreon as a Lions fan supporter, it's $4.99 a month. You get access to a Discord that is a standalone community, secure, I should say, which basically prevents trolls from showing up and circumventing or destroying any discussion flow. We actually discuss the game live time during today's game against the Packers, in fact, and I usually try to meet people in there occasionally during the week to go over film study stuff or just talk about aspects of the Lions season and things they could do to improve the team. Appreciate you guys' time, man.